Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join me tonight. Appreciate everyone being here. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. While you're in chat, if you have any questions, throw them in there. Be mindful and be respectful of the families, mods, and each other. Well, as we go and draw closer to our trial date for Richard Allen, who has been charged with the homicides of Abby and Libby, we get these hearings, and through these hearings, we're going to be seeing the concerns of the defense, and that's what we see that's come out and has been spoken about, and what they're really focused on. And one of the things that struck me, as you can see by the thumbnail and the title, is 61 so-called confessions or incriminating statements. Depends on which article you read and how they classify. And it's going to be extremely interesting as we move forward, because in my dealings with the courts, as being an investigator and conducting interviews and having them going to hearings and trying to have where the defense is trying to suppress those confessions, with my involvement, it's just typically myself and one other investigator and that's involved. But how many witnesses are we going to be talking about that that have witnessed this and have heard it? Because while he may have made 61 incriminating statements, it could be heard by more than 61 individuals. We'll just have to see, especially in those cell blocks and exchange of prisoners and throughout the day. And are we going to see some that's even more than just what Westville occurred at that location? But before we get into it, let's make sure that if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement has that information as we proceed towards the trial date and justice is sought for the homicides of Abby and Libby. They absolutely deserve justice, and this is part of the process, and we're going to learn a lot about the court, and we've already learned a lot about court proceedings, and we've seen just about every type of train wreck that you can imagine with our court systems up to this point. And will we see future train wrecks? I believe so. That's just my personal opinion, but we'll see as it moves forward what will and as we get into the hearings tomorrow about some of the jurors of what will be allowed and presented. It's going to get even more interesting as we draw near. But with that being said, I don't want to get too far behind on chat. Just want to check in, say hi to a few people here. Hello, Molly. Yes, Molly says 61. Let him plead guilty and save everyone the grief, time, and expenses of a trial. And that's the big question. I know of those of you that are familiar with Ruckus, he has said for months and months that it will be a plea deal. Is that possible? Absolutely. I hope not. I hope that it goes to trial and that we see the evidence presented. And if he does take a plea, absolutely, I believe that it would be good for society for the explanation of what were the triggers, what occurred, and, the families deserve answers. But all right. Hello, Marion Tate. Good to see you. Hello, James. And Daisy says local news says several times instead of 61 times. I find that rather annoying, especially since they mostly talk about odiness in yesterday's court reporting. Yes, like I said, there's articles out there that says incriminating statements 61 times and confessions, and there's articles that many times. I just saw those numbers and I wrote down the numbers because I found that extremely interesting. And we'll be talking about the significance of that. You know, when you have 61 incriminating statements or 61 confessions, and who were they heard by? What is their recollections of the facts and the details of that? Are they simple that I committed the homicides? Are there certain acts that he did? Are there certain details? And are those details what occurred at the scene? Are they details that are just outlandish and did not occur at the scene? And all of those have to be analyzed. And for the defense attempting to suppress them indicates that there's parts of these confessions or incriminating statements that have details that or they wouldn't be trying to suppress them. They just let them go on. You know, that if they're just ramblings and psychotic behaviors or fairy tales, that this is ramblings of a madman. And of course, that's what they're trying to put in there, that he was having a mental break. But even if he's having a mental break, will the courts allow it? And we'll be looking at some of the things that the courts will be looking at to establish, should they allow these statements to be heard and by a jury? And if so, what's contained in those statements? That if they're incriminating, then they must have facts that are found at the crime scene. Because if you confess to something, and that's one of the things that we as law enforcement officers, that when we look at something that, you know, if we have, say, a burglary occurred and we know entry came in through a back bedroom window, and we have people that confess that, oh, I came in through the garage, or I came in by kicking open the front door, and I went in and stole certain items. If there's none of those details that match, and from items taken or movement through the residence or a description of the residence or the crime scene, it's as simple as that. And was Richard Allen accurate on any of the details that were not known to the public? And it only takes that he has to be correct on one or two of those details. And if he's correct on one or two of those details, then we have issues. And we don't have issues. He has issues. And that's extremely important. Hello, Ziggy67. Good to see you. Witchcraft. Hello, Olivia. Sensei. Jill, good to see you. Let's see here. And Nightbots. Nightbots welcoming me everybody tonight. That's good. Justice Jane. Hello. Saudi Sleuth. Good evening. Al on the prowl. He's alive. Yes, Al, I'm alive. Oh. Cindy, no, we're just getting started. Didn't miss anything at all. Just getting started. Thank you for being here. And Solar Chef says, good evening, good people. Been breathing too much wildfire smoke out here in California. Figured I'd take a break, see you guys for a bit. Thank you for being here. Be safe out there with those fires and things. It's absolutely amazing, and what's going on out there. Junior, hello. Saudi Sleuth, 61 confessions is a bit much. And you're exactly correct for the fact that how in the world would they, how much time would be eaten up by the courts? What will they allow? What would they allow to be stipulated to by the attorneys? You know, will they just say that, yes, this is going to be repeated over and over again, or will there be arguments on either every detail by every witness, and so and what witnesses will be allowed, what would be the credibility, for the fact that with the inmates there's a lot of credibility issues, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going on, for the because with inmates they always try to work an angle, and that, but if they were in a position and in a location, which is easy enough because with the record keeping, we know who's where, when, and what times, and how was that information passed on to authorities that I heard a confession or I heard something incriminating. And so by the time that you went through 61 of these things by ever how many witnesses, how much of the court time will be taken up by that? And it's a huge amount. I've never in my life seen, and if y'all know of a case that's had more than that's had this many confessions, absolutely send me a link or send me a notice, because it's I'm just unfamiliar with anything like this. Dandy, 61. Hello, Peggy. Good to see you. Yeah, it's crazy. Who actually kept count of his confessions? This would be in the paperwork that is documented. I mean, it's not just that they're going and they're saying, well, so-and-so down the road or in cell block so-and-so heard something. Every statement will be documented. There'll be a report file. There'll be time log. There'll be interviews, recordings of those interviews, and transcripts of words said. And so all of this will be part of it. This is a great question. And but it's not just that they're going to bring in random people that haven't sat down and spoke to a law enforcement official or some type of investigator and passed it along and created a chain of events, a timeline, and so that all these details of what he spoke of, what he said, and from how they documented all the details. Yes, and that's some of the things that we have to look at. That here's what a confession is, and then we'll go back to this. But he, he made these statements not only to his wife and mother on a public line, and how will they suppress those? Because those statements, when he made them, of course, they're going to try to say that he's in some type of mental state that is brought on by suffering and, inhumane treatment. And will they look at it that way? And will it be, because we have the inmates that they made note of in some of the articles today, the guards, the staff, the warden, Department of Corrections, psychologist was made reference to in some of the articles also, and then the state investigator, and then the mother and the wife. So how many, and when does it end? And is there a possibility that through the court system, he'll be able to suppress all of those? And that's where it is going to be coming into this about a confession, that there's certain things that have to occur for a confession to be involuntary and be able to be used against him. As you can look here at this that I pulled from one of the law resources out there, that if law enforcement prevented a suspect from using their free will, if a defendant exercises his right to an attorney and then gets some type of incriminating statement or a confession, all those things can be suppressed. If you deny them certain medical treatment or anything that they would have harm to them or others. That, once again, it's something that could be suppressed. But and confessions from torture-like tactics or deprivation of basic necessities would be involuntary. And that's one of the things that we're seeing as far as what the defense is probably going to be going after. They're going to go after this basic necessities of life, and that that created some type of mental fatigue and mental illness, and created a hostile, that he had a mental break. And these are all examples, and which could get a confession, as it says here, wiped out as involuntary. And but it's limited. It's not something that's broad. Just because the defense says it, just because Richard Allen says it, doesn't mean it's so. And they'll have to take this piece by piece and look at it. And then the factors that's going to be considered by the courts. And of course, law enforcement, as far as the state investigators' confessions that were given to them, what tactics were used, how long was the interview, was the Miranda read, when was it read, how was it read, and what was the state of mind that he was in during that. And the courts will look at, analyze all these factors, and determine how law enforcement conducted those interviews. And of course, then they'll, what statement did he make to law enforcement specifically, whether it be one of the correctional officers or one of the investigating officers or an investigator that is tied from the perspective as far as law enforcement. What exactly details did he tell them? And so that's a whole different class of interviews and possible evidence and documentation that law enforcement would have done, and the tactics used by them to obtain those confessions. Whereas if he's given, such as we get this next section, if the defendant started the interaction resulting in confession, probably will not be involuntary unless the tone and content of the conversation changed dramatically. If they were young, which we don't have here, and because it doesn't apply to Richard Allen, he's a full-grown man, or if he's the one that's responsible for these deaths, he's a full-grown monster that committed these crimes if what he has confessed to is true. And then what type of crimes they were, which that's all for the age related. But we go down to the final part where they're talking about the health of a defendant can be an issue to consider. What was his health at the time? Is it something that's self-induced? Is it something that he had planned? Did he deliberately put himself in a position to appear, off the charts? And as far as his mental state, there's so much that we have to understand of that these individuals, while you're in the jail, you can be coached. I've been in the jails and heard hundreds of conversations between inmates of how to tell each other to act crazy, or this is how the way to get a confession thrown out by just being crazy or stripping or attempting self-harm, or doing all kind of things from deviant acts. You'll be amazed at what happens in these jails when these inmates try to create the illusion that they're mentally challenged, and sometimes it is absolutely a farce. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just trying to stage something to gather so that they can go to court and other inmates can testify, and the correctional officers can testify that this is what we saw, this is how he's behaving, and is it true or not? But like I said, there's a lot of coaching that goes on between inmates and jails. But like I said, with all these considerations of what's going on, And to all these people, there's going to be it's going to be a huge task for the state to determine what's correct and what's not. All right, let me get back into chat here and see what's going on. Get caught back up. Get back to where I was. Don't take me but a few minutes. Mrs. Steve is usually with me. She's in Florida right now, and I'll be heading back in a few hours. After the show, I'm going to go have me a cup of coffee and lay down, get me a couple, 3 hours sleep, and then I'm going to hit the road. Okay, hide current comment. There we go. All right. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Because we're going to see where we're at. Hello, Perry Winkle. Good to see you. Lee and Susan Trainer. Good to see you. Anna says, allegedly he said he shot them, etc. What I've heard so far sounds like babbling without substance. And that's correct. And they're going to have to look at all of these incriminating statements. And he may have said, at certain points. We know that the functioning of the firearm occurred for the fact that we have an unspent round that was there. Was a shot fired? Did the gun jam? Was it unable to fire? Did he have a mental break that he thought he fired the gun? There's times and there's documented cases where even law enforcement or individuals in firefights have stated that they shot so many times, and they may have shot and absolutely run their guns or firearms dry, or they may have never fired the first shot. So that'll have to be looked at and put in the proper context. And so now we don't know which way it is. Let's see here. Let's see. Hello, Dandylinus. Yeah, and this is something else, Alan Prowl, and it's a good point. Just watch the case in Hawaii where the two suspects supposedly confessed were found guilty. However, just a few weeks ago, were found to have nothing to do with the crime through DNA. And there's a history of this throughout the court systems and in our facilities. And this is a good point. And this is how come the details of the crime, and if those details are things that are known publicly, then of course you can say that, well, they gathered that information from public sources. But if it's details that are not known other than to someone that had to be at the crime scene, then that's different. And we don't know. I don't know what all these details are. I'm anxiously awaiting to see the true details from every one of these incriminating statements and see which way they lead. Hello, Data. Lisa, good to see you. Yeah, he has gone from one extreme to the other. He looks healthier sometimes in some of these pictures. I don't know if when they bring in some of the images of them, what's the timeline from each article of when they're made. Of course, we've seen him across from those that were released where he looks like he's, in some state of mental, issues as far as dirty, unclean, clothing stained, and what was the purpose of those images being taken and released? I think we can surmise what they were. And there is a story about a psychologist participating in YouTube chats, and that would be looked at by the courts. Is that individual? What was the reason? And is that even, uh, is there legs to that story? And the courts will take care of that accordingly. Hello, Delphi dummies. And Molly has a good point here. If she was that, she would jeopardize her license to practice, and she could be criminally charged as well, depending on the state. She doesn't value her career and financial security if she did. And like I said, that'd be addressed by the courts, so we get to see if that's going to be the case. Hello, Mustang 65. Let's see. If I miss anybody, I apologize. I'm trying to get caught back up again, guys. Yes, you'd be surprised what you hear in jail and prisons. Absolutely. And a lot of those inmates, they constantly, you have the jail rats that are seeking an angle. And it has those statements that's heard by these inmates, they have to be vetted too. And those details, like I said, everything is vetted. They're not going to be going in there with hearsay that is 3 generations down that inmate so and so told me after he left cell block so and so, which was next door to Richard Allen, and this is what he told me. And now, can some of those statements be used? Possible if there's key details of something that would only be known, and that would only be supporting evidence of the first generation confession to the original. But uh, as far as the weight it would carry, it would have to be only as supporting of certain conditions. Let's see. Hello, Pitbull Mom. Witchcraft says, I'm so tired of hearing people whine about him being in prison instead of a jail. Put him in a jail and let whatever happens, happens. And that was one of the things that on one of our prior shows that we discussed, that the prison systems are for long-term incarcerations. They have better medical staff and can take care of certain issues. And so I don't have a problem. You're just behind as much steel and concrete and blocks and daylight in one facility as the other. When you're sitting in the correctional institute, regardless if it's a jail or a prison, in the condition and you're not really going to be able to tell the difference. And the court says that it's allowed, and if the courts allow it, then uh, while individuals can voice their opinions, it's not something that can't be done within the Constitution. And so, we can, of course, people are going to argue it till the end of time, but it is what it is, and there's not a thing we can do about it. Mustang 65, justice for Abby and Libby, absolutely. They are at the forefront. Hello, Lynn. CJK says over 100 confessions, 60 with details and 40 without. I didn't see that article, but it's very possible. And that's what I'm saying. Um, uh, what will be the final number? I have no idea. Molly says, True Crime Web, I think he is regularly evaluated, and when the attorneys released the pick, they evaluated and didn't even prescribe meds. He may act crazy because then he gets more meds and can just sleep. Then that's something that these inmates do. They're constantly going to see and get meds. It breaks up their routine, and The medical staff at the uh, facility that our inmates were housed at, they stayed busy, and by they worked shifts trying to get all these inmates processed for their so-called aches and pains. Anna says that there was a historical case, an unconvicted suspect kept in prison rather than jail around 1940 California. Crime against child, lynching likely, no suspect sent to San Quentin. Lynching likely. Oh, so he was sent to San Quentin for safety. Mr. Steve, have you ever heard of an innocent person confessing 61 times? No, but is it possible? Of course, that's what the defense is going to argue, that it was totally due to his mental state. Now, how long of a time period and what will be the timeline? Because if this timeline is months and months and is during a time period of where he is speaking with medical staff and is being evaluated, and those statements are made um, at times where his evaluation is that there's nothing as far as him being coerced, um, then he's going to have issues, and he's going to have issues regardless. I don't. While the judge may suppress some of these statements, and uh, or none of them, we just don't know yet. But I'm looking forward to finding out. CJK says he's the guy. Hope everyone sees it. My opinion, I see it. Uh, yeah, true, but oh boy, these guards, or those guards. Yes, there's going to be certain guards, but we don't know now. Not all the guards. Now we may, um, are. You know, I would be amazed that if we have that every guard in a facility is linked to an Odinist. Are we only talking about a couple of individuals? Um, so I never even heard of Odinist, and so is it something that, uh, and that's something that may be asked, and that may be a great point for the prosecution. That okay, now over here we have someone of a different denomination. He's not an Odinist. He goes to church every time the doors open. And is that possible? Absolutely. So we may not, not all the guards, but I think that almost be an impossibility that all the guards are Odinists. Yeah, CJK, and that's going to be the thing is how many different people, and each of these persons would have to document each of those statements. And this is a good point. If his strongest statement, "I'm guilty as charged," that's very thin. Yes, and and I don't, I I think um, that there's going to be more details than that. I know that some of the details are about firearms involvement, but I agree with you. If it's just "I'm guilty as charged," that's one thing, and so I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Witchcraft says, I think they're playing attorneys like a fiddle. They're trying to draw it out for a movie book. It's possible. Yes, I've seen Alan Prowl says I've seen suspects plead guilty and confess to avoid trial for lighter sentences instead of a jury trial. Absolutely. And especially if the ultimate penalty is placed on the table. Yes, he is. If he is the one involved and did this, he is a monster. No ifs, ands, or buts. For the fact that there has to be that we have two victims, and he didn't stop with the first victim. He can second victim, and that's absolutely of a not only a second victim but a second child. And anyone that can do that is a monster. Hello, Stephanie. And Truth Exposed says, I believe he started himself so he would lose weight and not look like the bridge guy. He needed to lose 60 or 70 pounds. It just made him look feeble. It did. Absolutely. And it set the stage for what is occurring now. And for that, the attorneys, they're doing what attorneys do. Hello, Hail Mary. That's a great name. Uh, Yeah, it depends on which article you read. It's incriminating statements, confessions, and maybe more. It depends on what the details are. Let me see. Thank you. Yeah, I've been on the road quite a bit. Molly says, True Crime Web mods chat, busy night, but said to give y'all a big coffee. Welcome. Yes, I work for coffee, as always. I have 2 cups actually tonight. Thank you. Lori says, hello, glad you're getting to be with Mrs. Steve and she can be on the show also. Please be careful on your travels. Absolutely. She's still down there in Florida right now. We've got moved into a new property and I'm carrying some more stuff down in just a few hours. 61 confessions are not all are coerced. That is a guilty monster. Very possible. I know that we're going to, I don't know when she'll rule on the motions, but I can't wait to see. Junior, I wonder if fingerprints were on the bullet. If they were, I believe they would have been highlighted in one of the probable cause affidavits. So I don't think now there was mention about a partial fingerprint somewhere. And even if that was a partial fingerprint, I don't know. We'll just have to see. But if it was, I think that would have been extremely strong evidence that would be brought out in one of the affidavits. And this is a good point. Truth Exposed puts out that the injuries that have occurred to each victim and in the sequence of injuries, because there's a lot of things that from the time that you're processing that crime scene. And I mean, this is a great point here of that you can tell a lot through the processing of the crime scenes and positioning of a victim and certain injuries, especially when you're involving a sharp edge instrument, that certain things can occur. And as far as depth, length, what sequence of when each injury was inflicted, to each victim. And the coroner, if they talk about certain things that occurred to that victim that we may have no clue that occurred either to the front of the body, side of the body, back of the body, neck of the body, head of the victim, it to any part of that victim. And we have those details that are part of the inquest and the investigation by medical examiner, coroner, whoever did the examination and documented all those injuries. That if we then have someone that confesses to a crime and he knows about certain sequences or certain acts, that is huge. Um, um, but truth exposed, that is a great point. Alan the Prowl says this is going to come down to collaborating evidence. Absolutely. Timestamp, cell phone. Absolutely correct. Hello, GP. Rob Lee says, as far as conflicting confessions, some people surmise that his attorneys may have instructed him to do that after the initial rash of confession to add confusion. Absolutely. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes on within the jails and jailhouse lawyers and suggestions and how much of it is part of their plan of action that you see these offenders go to. Absolutely possible. Hannah says that Nightbot is in a mood tonight, timing out people. Gotta be careful, Nightbot, serial offender. And Junior, absolutely. As much as you hate to see the winter come, I'll be glad when this trial is over and we get justice for Abby and Libby. Absolutely. Just try and get caught up in chat, guys. Tammy is speaking and says that Cass County is a Holiday Inn compared to Westville Prison. Had a nephew in both. You're like everyone else, guilty until proven innocent. Used to be biased, but as an ex-cop, expected. Yeah, I am biased towards that. My whole career has been that when we have um, and you present data and information to a judge that you're sworn to tell the truth, that we take those warrants and we take that information. And, we have to respect these people that absolutely, they call out and say that, um, and they believe in the other side. And we have to have this, guys. So we have to respect these individuals that have different opinions. And, but they have their opinion is that he's absolutely innocent, or you know, um, or they wouldn't be stating such a statement as this, and that's fair. And we have to have this so that justice can be found for Abby and Libby. And so I don't have problems when people have differing opinions. And but yes, we all have biases. Anyone that says that they're not biased one way or another, um, you know. Is not a truthful statement. Hello, Michelle. So I respect people that, Indiana. If the ordinance fit, you must have quit. Oh, that's funny. CJK says, and he said he used a box cutter, which he ditched at CVS. If that's the case, then we're going. If some of those injuries are from a instrument such as a box cutter, then that will be huge. We just don't know. And yes, you know, just everybody has to be respectful. I like people that take up one side or another, but I can see where, and I have no problem with that when a mod sees that someone is uh, being unfair or, and they do it for my best interest. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. So carry on. I'm far more forgiving than my mods at sometimes, and but there's no problem with that. Hello, V Marie. Good to see you. And CJK says, we still need to know his motive and why, Abby and Libby. Absolutely. Hello, Nana63. Work gets in the way of TCW. Sad. Cecil Hotel, good to see you. CJK said, I listened to a lady on Facebook who had live as she was there. She mentioned box cutter. I wonder who brought that up. Was it the defense or prosecution? That's very kind of you, Crit. But hi, Steve, and mad respect. You have a great experience in law enforcement, CSI. You stay away from the drama. No ego and funny. We're glad to have you in this community. Yeah, I like I said, I'm not impressed by much. I've seen just about all of any one individual should see, and I'm open. And throughout my career, we had to be challenged. Our CSI, our evidence, when we took and we conducted an interview, we have to be challenged as law enforcement officers for the fact that every step of the way for us to get justice and make sure that we have the right individual, every bit of evidence has to be challenged. Every statement that we take has to be challenged so that we know that the evidence is not something that is formulated or created by law enforcement just to put someone behind jail. And so I understand it, and I have much respect for our court system. And I'm probably more lenient towards defense attorneys than most because I like them. According to a YouTube psychiatrist, Chris Watts had to talk to his dad before he confessed. RA had confessed to wife and mom. Dependent personalities, maybe. I saw a interview where Chris Watts spoke to his father, and law enforcement allowed that interaction to occur, which was a good strategy. It worked. This Rich Allen dude sickened me. I can't believe he has a fan base. Weird people. Like I said, everybody can have fan bases, and for whatever reasons, I don't. Like I said, it slows the system down and ensures that we have a justice system that works. Awake Girly. What a great name. Thanks for keeping it real. I learn something every time I watch you. Thank you for your service. Absolutely. It was an honor to serve. I tried to do my best. Did they instruct him to eat? If this is true, I can't comprehend this. I don't know if they advised him to do that or not. But if he did, where did that originate from? And is that something that one of the jailhouse attorneys advised him to do? It wouldn't, some. I don't think I ever heard in my career. Well, I heard a lot of, and I saw some strange things occur. Um, one of these days, I'll go into some of those details of when I started my career and worked in the jail itself as a jailer early on in my career, as I first started and advanced upward and forward. That you see a lot of things that happens, interactions between inmates. Oh man. Oh, some of you guys. Oh man. Do box cutter wounds look different from a knife wound slashings? Um, a great story I had one time is that I saw a individual um, that his argument that he wasn't trying, had been charged with attempted homicide, and he says, "Your Honor," and as he was explaining to the judge that yes, while I did take this knife and I did attack that victim, I held that knife. I'll have to let me blow this up and get out of here just for a second. So this, as I was interviewing, this is what he told me that he told the judge. Let me remove this also. He said that, of course, I had a knife when I was attacking the victim, but he said I didn't intend to commit homicide, and I can prove that I shouldn't be charged with the aggravated assault and that. He said for the fact that when I held the knife and I was cutting on him, I didn't hold it in this manner. I held it in this manner, where there was just this tiny tip here. And that way I could cut on him all day and not kill him. I thought, man, that is unreal. But when you're talking to these people, and he had a good point. I just never, it never occurred to me that, and I asked him, I said, well, did the judge believe that? And he said, no, he sent me to prison for a long time. But, I really wasn't trying to kill him. I just held it in that certain manner. Oh, man. There's some strange people in court or in our jail system. But I had to respect the guy. Hmm. Barbara Hall's here. Hello. Says I'm late. I will rewind. Thank you for being here. Mr. Steve, will box cutter undermine premeditation? No. I mean, anytime you attack a victim with any sharp edge weapon, no. I mean, how many people carry box cutters? Well, I do. Uh, I have one. I like box cutters. I carry this one. You know, um, you change out, sharpen them pretty easy. But I don't know. I also carry a knife, but I have all kind of cutting instruments. Hello, Gail Hurd. Hello, Sharon Parker. How is everybody? Laura says, don't listen to the defense. They can lie, not words off of paper. Tell them how to act before and during trial. Yes, there's going to be a lot of coaching that goes on. Absolutely. Blackwood, good to see you. Oh, I love when Mr. C says, "Oh me, oh my." I think Anna says, I think some gangs use box cutters quite effectively, and box cutters hijack. Yes, on 9/11, they are deadly. Absolutely. I take it you're talking about when I was explaining the knife. uh, uh, Things that you see. And law enforcement, we have a dark humor. We appreciate people being open. I carried one for 10 years, V. Marie says, working at a manufacturing plant. Came in handy once or twice. Oh, the details. We got to have the details. Boston Christian, good to see you. Miss Serene. Oh, okay. Didn't expect. I like box cutters and I carry them. Uh, but anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And if you like the show, give it a thumbs up, share it. Appreciate it. And if you have any comments on it, or absolutely throw them in there. If you have any more questions, send them to me, steve@truecrimeweb.com. I'm going to be getting on the road in just a few hours. I'm going to go lay down, finish my coffee, go lay down, get me a nap, and probably leave early in the AM. But I appreciate everybody being here. And if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure law enforcement has that information so that we can have justice for Abby and Libby. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.